we have to talk about how they handled Peter's letter in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So this was easily the most interesting part of the movie for me, at least going into it, because it was such a devastating moment at the end of No Way Home when he writes the letter, he's going to see Zendaya, MJ, in the coffee shop, and he ultimately decides not to tell her any of it, and he lets her go, and that is basically how the movie ends, which was a huge knife in the heart. It was an absolutely devastating moment, and that was the end of the movie. So here we are, new movie, and it's like, okay, well, we're not just going to scrap those characters. How are we going to deal with the fact that Peter's love of his life and his best friend have no idea who he is? As well as, you know, literally everyone in the entire world, but those are the two only important people left in his life. Rest in peace, Aunt May. So it's this big question of, okay, how is he going to tell them? Is he even going to tell them? And what are their reactions going to be? How is the movie going to deal with this letter? Okay, so let's go through the movie, right? So multiple years have passed since No Way Home, and we see Peter looking at videos through Ned's Instagram, kind of checking in on Ned and MJ, and it is immense loneliness that Peter is feeling, and we feel absolutely heartbroken for him. And he lets these years go by. Basically, their entire college career, I suppose, is without Peter. During this time, he has been in New York City saving lives and being the #1 hero in the city. And despite all the love and the gratitude that he gets from New York City itself, he is without the people who he himself loves. So he's watching these videos of them trying to stay in somewhat contact, right? At least monitor what's going on in their lives, and eventually he runs into Ned. Now, he doesn't interact with him, but he does follow him in a little bit of a stalkerish way, and apparently Ned and MJ are hosting a house party. So he takes this opportunity, yet again from a distance though, right? But this is kind of the first time that he is trying to enter back into their lives somewhat, and he makes up a fake name. He says that he's their neighbor, and he has a little chat with them before ultimately leaving once he sees that MJ now has a boyfriend. Which, by the way, that man was in the movie for literally 30 seconds, so it was hyped up like it was gonna be a big thing. I'm not mad at it. It was just really funny to see this guy literally just kiss her and maybe say a few lines, and that was it. So he is devastated, right? And this all kind of intertwines with his transformation into more of an arachnid with his DNA, and that's a main part of the movie. I'm not focusing on that, I'm just focusing on the relationships though. But it sucks, he's devastated, and obviously it's not out of the realm of possibility for her to date someone. It's been 4 years or whatever, but it still is absolutely brutal for him, and he is coming to terms with how lonely his life is. The fact that he has lost all of these people, it is just so brutal. So Peter and Jean Grey kind of start interacting, and Spider-Man gets in her way, and so she kind of goes after him and makes it seem like she is going to attack Zendaya. MJ, I'm sorry, she's Zendaya to me. He is absolutely mortified by this, and he thinks that he outwits her, but ultimately in the end, she gets to MJ. So Peter doesn't know this though, and so he sees MJ, kind of talks to her about the situation very broadly, and Jean Grey as MJ basically says like, this only makes sense for you to be trying to save me because I knew you before, and who are you? And they kiss, and ultimately I'm in the theater and I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if this is how you would be handling it. Turns out it is Jean Grey, and so he has been bamboozled, he has been f***ed with, and it's so devastating because this is everything that Peter had wanted this entire time. He wanted to kiss her, to hold her after all of these years, and for it to be revealed that she doesn't remember anything, that it is Jean Grey inside MJ's body, was just so devastating, and he realizes that ultimately he's powerless because this is what happens to superheroes when they have loved ones. It is constantly getting in the way of saving the world, and you care about your girlfriend, and so you ultimately prioritize her, and it's this whole thing, but basically he can't do shit. What he can do though is try to take her completely out of the equation so that Jean Grey can't find her. So he takes MJ to Punisher, who basically is going to guard her, protect her, whatever. And during that time, obviously he's trying to explain what the fuck is happening, right? Without revealing, oh, you know, I loved you in the past, so that's why I'm doing this. But she kind of goes along with it and ends up staying with Punisher, and they have this really cute scene where it's like behind a curtain and she's trying to help him out, and they're talking about him as Spider-Man and with a Mrs. Spider-Man, and this is honestly one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it shows that the chemistry is still there. But then the next day he has to leave, right? And unfortunately for him, he kept the letter in his pocket or whatever. Maybe he was thinking about telling her, but then he left it. And so when he then goes to save the world and do Spider-Man shit, when he comes back, MJ has read the letter and she's like, hey man, what is this? And this is probably my favorite part of the movie because again, it was the most anticipated part for me. I am dying to know how they're going to do this. And so her finding the letter makes sense to me. I think that was a good way to do it. And she's basically like, what gave you the right to withhold this information from me? Especially if we had agreed before that you were gonna come find me. Now we know why he didn't do it, right? We know that he lost Aunt May, that all of these people in his life have been hurt in some way or killed like Aunt May, and so it's hard to get those people involved again and make yourself vulnerable to that type of hurt. He wanted to protect MJ and Ned and doesn't want anything bad to happen to them, but ultimately he did withhold this information, which she probably would have wanted to know. And yes, it is very hard, right? Hey, I was in love with you and I'm also Spider-Man and all of your memories were erased. Like, that's not an easy sell. So MJ is kind of grilling him on that, and in a utterly just devastating fashion, she says, you know, I understand your thought process and whatever, and I understand that you love me, but I don't have any of those memories and I don't love you. Which again, devastating, just absolutely devastating. This man is going through it in this movie. It is, for some reason, people love to see Spider-Man going through it and just in the worst mindset of his entire life, including me. I think it is great cinema, but it still sucks. So yeah, just a heartbreaking scene, but then he ends up taking her home, and before he leaves, she invites him upstairs to come hang out with Ned. And so again, just an absolutely masterful way of navigating this plot line, because it's like, okay, how is this reveal going to happen? And they decided to do it in a very subtle way where there are steps, you know, there's progress. And so first he's just seeing them online, and then he's this neighbor, and then whatever. And so it really was nice to see them still have that chemistry, all of them. Him with Ned, him with MJ, still have that chemistry that just doesn't go away even though their memories were forgotten. So they're hanging out, they're now friends, and then he has to go leave again. And ultimately, this was kind of the meat of that plot line, right? Like, they didn't want to fully, I don't know, have Peter Parker back in Ned and MJ's life yet, which I think was smart by the writers to do. I think that having realistic going on, right? Like, you don't necessarily get to have this sweet reunion when all of this other is going down. And so I liked the way they did it. They kind of left the door open for the next movie, and it kind of ends like that, right? The only other interaction we see is, I mean, we see MJ grappling with it, right? She's on a rooftop, which is a phenomenal juxtaposition with her and Peter, and it just shows that she's really taking all this new information in. But the only other interaction we see in the movie is at the very end when Peter goes up to Ned, who does not know him, right? They only met through the Spider-Man mask. Peter goes up to Ned, who has no idea who he is, and he starts doing the handshake, which of course Ned remembers. Which is really interesting because your mental memories may be gone, but what about muscle memory, right? And what does that activate? Because they do the whole handshake, and at the end, Ned goes, Peter? And it's like this light bulb moment. And so I love that they ended it on this, right? I love that they left the door open because, okay, how much will Ned maybe remember now? MJ still is grappling with all this new information. I love that they didn't just fully resolve that problem, that plot line in one movie. They really let all of these different things happen, right? Because you had this letter happen and Peter's relationships. You had Jean Grey, you had Punisher and Hulk and Yelena in there, all of these different things. And most importantly, the core aspect of this movie was Peter's transformation, getting out of isolation and dealing with the trauma that he had with losing Aunt May and the burden of being Spider-Man. They say great power comes with great responsibility, so it is this constant thing that he's gonna have to deal with. And that was the core aspect of this movie. So yeah, I absolutely adore how they dealt with the letter and Peter Parker's relationships with people in this movie, because it truly was the most fascinating aspect of his story thus far, and I think the next movie can wrap it up in a really nice way if they choose to do so. That being said, I will fucking throw hands if Peter and MJ don't end up together and Ned isn't alive with them hanging out, because you've built it up so well. We don't need another Andrew Garfield, Gwen Stacy type of moment with Emma Stone fucking splattering. I just don't need another dead love interest. Give me a happy ending. You've developed it so well. I think they can pull it off with one final movie if that's how they decide to do it. So yeah, there's probably so much more to this that I'm not even thinking of right now. I want to see the movie again because that plotline was just phenomenal, and I loved how they dealt with it throughout the movie in a realistic way. That being said though, I will absolutely talk about Spider-Man in another video coming up soon, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you giving me your time and your eyeballs. I love you, and I hope you are having a great time. Go enjoy some Spider-Man, guys.